Hi everyone. Now I want to discuss with you the origin of species. What I want to set right up front is a disclaimer. I have not yet read The Origin of Species, but I did add to my collection. You all know me, I like to get originals and retellings of an original. And this is it. I'm going to show it to you. So here's the original, The Origin of Species. This is the book that I found at my library sale. And I'm going to show you the children's versions of these. And there are two. One that I think is geared towards a younger audience and one that's geared to one that's a little bit older. And an interesting thing that I want to point out to you is that the chapters in the original story is the same breakdown that the retellings, the children's versions, use. So the chapters in order here: variation under domestication, variation under nature, struggle for existence, natural selection, laws of variation, difficulties on theory, instinct, hybridism, on the imperfection of the geological record, on the geological succession of organic beings, geographical distribution, and geographical distribution continued, mutual affinities of organic beings, morphology, embryology, rudimentary organs, recapitulation, and conclusion. So those are the 14 chapters of the original. The first retelling I want to show you is adapted and illustrated by Sabina, Radeva. Hardbound, has simple illustrations, and look at this. Look at the end covers. Don't these look fantastic? And here you could put the name of the child in there, which I think is wonderful. Just like when you have a nature book and you do the same. Here's the other end cover. Same here. End pages, excuse me. End pages. Now, instead of having sort of a table of contents in the front, it starts immediately with the story, and the opening is: a long time ago, before humans even existed, the living world looked very different from how it looks today. That's not the whole thing. But on the next page it says, for most of human history, many people believed that everything in the world was created all at once. They thought that plants, animals, and people were always the same as they are now. And there's your opening page. From there, it mentions other scientists who were exploring the same topic that Darwin did. And I love that introduction. The first one is Georges Louis Leclerc du Buffon, and I know I got his name wrong. The next one they talk about is Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, and the questions that each one asked. For de Buffon, they have a quote saying, animals change over time and they often look different in different parts of the world. His question. And with Lamarck, his comment they put in here is, perhaps giraffes who give their necks a good stretch to reach the higher leaves will go on to have baby giraffes with extra stretched necks? ? And then they lead into and Charles Darwin and how he had similar questions based on his observations in nature. Then they go into the Darwin family. And a little bit of his background, how he would study a flower in the garden, and there was a I think it was an orangutan that Darwin liked to observe in the zoo. Now, they start going into what Darwin talks about. First into species, and they define what species is. And they go into what those variations are within the species by showing the bunny rabbits. And then it starts to go under the chapter headings of the original. Variation under domestication, and they use the example of dogs. And then they go into the pigeons. Then they cover the plant life. They covered plants and then domesticated farm animals. Then they go into the next chapter of variation under nature. So we're talking about wildlife and the variation among them, remembering the chapters that I read off at the beginning. Struggle for existence is the next chapter on here. Struggle for existence. It's the same name. Then it goes into natural selection. And it's the same title in chapter 4 of the original book. And the original, chapter 5, covers laws of variation. And I don't see that particular title here. It's going into genus, species, genus, etc. And then it goes into the tree. Can you see that? The following chapter has the same title as the original, Difficulties on Theory. That would be chapter 6 in the original. And then it will go into instinct. It's covering, look, bees and birds. Birds and bees. Covers migration, mutual affinities of organ beings. Interesting. So they're covering a hand. Here you're showing the images of embryos and their similarities and the evolution of the whale. And then it concludes, so it goes into conclusion. And the conclusion here is like this one page, and it brings up the important points. And then in the appendix, what I like about the appendix is it covers another British scientist, Alfred Russel Wallace, and how he was an inspiration for Darwin. It also covers terminology, DNA and genes, inheritance, variation, and mutations. So it's giving the reader a little bit more of an update on the same topic because they really didn't have DNA information. It goes into a little bit more into natural selection, epigenetics, the tangled thicket of life, and comparative embryology. Again, they're using some expanding more on the topics touched upon in Darwin's book. And then it covers misconceptions. Evolution explains the origin of life on Earth. No. And then it goes to explain why. Evolution proves that we evolved from monkeys. No. And then it explains why. Evolution is when one kind of animal gives birth to another kind of animal. Again, no. And the last one, you can't see evolution happening. And they explain that. It has a glossary in the back. And dedications and credits. And that's it. So this, I love this. And the last page has a recommended reading list. So The Mystery of Darwin's Frog by Marty Crump, The Tree of Life by Peter Siss, plus several others. And a little bit about the author. This is a wonderful read-aloud book. I liked it very much. Simplifies the information. Doesn't make it too much happening for younger minds, and this is something you can go fast or slow through depending on how your kids or your students are responding to it. The next book is bigger, it's thicker, and as you guessed, it's going to have more information. The drawings are more advanced. It also has picture images. So if we compare the table of contents to the original, in this children's version, chapter 1 is sporting plants and blue pigeons to coincide with the chapter 1 in the original book. Variation under Domestication. Their chapter 2 is Drawing Borders Between Species, with Darwin's Variation under Nature. The Struggle for Life in the newer book coincides with Darwin's Struggle for Existence. The next chapter is Survival of the Fittest. It's the same as Darwin's Natural Selection chapter. The Horse's Stripes is the next one, covers laws of variation. Difficulties of My Theory, almost the same title, Difficulties on Theory in the original. Instinct is the same title in both books. Rules and Mules, covering hybridism. Reading the Rocks covers the imperfection of the geological record and the geological succession of organic beings, I believe, because it's short by one chapter. And then the next chapter is The Rise and Fall of Species. And chapter 12 of the new book, What Living Things Share. And finally, This View of Life, covering the Darwin's recapitulation and conclusion. I was trying to match up those other earlier last three I mentioned with the original chapters in Darwin's book. It covered geographical distribution in two chapters in Darwin's book, which was made into one in this one, The Geography of Life. And the chapter 12 in the new book, What Living Things Share, I'm going to assume is chapter 13 in Darwin's book, Mutual Affinities of Organic Beings, Morphology, Embryology, Rudimentary Organs. Then as we go, and if you'll notice here in the table of contents, they have the drawings, as well as a picture of Darwin. Then I'm going to show you just briefly. They talk about Darwin's great discovery. It opens with a picture / drawing of Darwin when he was younger. And in the book also they have some quotes from Darwin or comments made about Darwin for people who knew him. So in this opening chapter it says, "Poor man, he just stands and stares at a yellow flower for minutes at a time," said the gardener. "He would be far better off with something to do." And this was a quote, I forgot which, doesn't mention the book, but that's someone who knew Darwin. They have here a drawing of the Beagle that Darwin sailed in. And you can see the drawings here are much more two-dimensional than the first book. The writing a little smaller. This too could also be a read aloud. Easily it could be a read aloud. And this is something that you would just take your time with your children, really just savoring it and stopping to answer their questions and talking about it. This would be, gosh, you could use it with any age, but because it's covering more content, I'm thinking it would be for an older student, either to read on their own, pieces of it, parts of it, or from cover to cover. It really is, like, I would consider this like a kid's coffee table book because it has really wonderful stuff. It really looks and also reads more like a science book for an elementary level student. So this, as far as a read alone, I would say a kid 5th grade and up could read this on their own. This in itself could be a full semester of science covering evolution and everything related to it. It could be used as a supplement to science. It could be used as research for a science project. This really is a fabulous young person's edition on Charles Darwin on the origin of species. If you have younger children, this is a good beginning. a read aloud, simple illustrations, each chapter super simplified so that the children can have a very basic concept of evolution and its terminology. And once that child gets older, either you can read through this or they can read through this on their own. I love each of these. I purchased both because I wanted to look at them and then send one back that I didn't like as much. But I ended up keeping both because I saw how they addressed very well each age category. So this one, let's say from kindergarten through 4th grade. And this one I would say from 5th through middle school. 5th through middle school. And with its different variations as a read through, as a research source. But this would be upper elementary, middle school. And then, of course, when a kid gets to high school, they can cover this. And just think, if they've had this and they've had this as kids, once they hit high school and they read this, they're ready. They've got the basic information. They've got a great foundation. They're going to understand this far better than if they had just approached this for the very first time. And it would seem like this dense, hard to understand book. It's fascinating. And these other 2 books, I think, are going to help them along the way. So that's it, people. Here's the collection. And I would definitely recommend these 2 here to go along with it. And I will put the information in the description box so that you can purchase them. I go through bookshop.org. If you liked what you saw, press the like button and the subscribe button. If you have questions or suggestions or anything, please make a note of them in the comments and I will answer you. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.